The Traverse is Chevy's biggest crossover before you step into the truck-based SUVs like the Tahoe and the Suburban, but it's nearly as big, and I'm testing the Z71, which might give your family some edge when you're going off-road. Let's take a look. The Traverse is now in its third generation. It's been out since the late 2000s, and I've never been a fan. It's just always looked kind of frumpy and just like a van. Now in Z71 trim or any trim, it's looking tougher and leaner despite being a lot bigger. The Traverse is pretty mean up front. In the Z71 trim, yeah, the red tow hooks are kind of gimmicky because you're not going to really use them, but maybe you just might. There's a real metal skid plate under there, way more ground clearance than before, and the whole front end really looks like the Silverado 1500. That is what this is really all about. Bigger trucks, bigger capability, and I like just the fact that the headlights are echoing all of Chevy's other SUVs, from the smaller Trailblazer up to this one. This Traverse looks nearly as big as a Tahoe, and that's because it is. The wheelbase is the same, 8.4 inches more than the previous generation Traverse, and the whole vehicle nearly a foot longer, over 3 inches higher, and nearly 6 inches wider. These are big changes that make the Traverse look so much more substantial, which stretches this truck so much more than it ever used to be. And it's also a lot blockier, so much edgier in the front. All those soft edges of the Traverse, they're all gone. Special bumpers in the front for increased approach angles. Chevy doesn't say exactly what those are, but you can guess that it definitely is better. There's an inch lift on all of the corners. All-terrain tires, 18 inches, and I do like it. Even if you're not going to ever go off-road, this appearance package and all the hardware with it definitely make the Traverse a lot more edgy. For 2025, there are 2 trim changes. The base LS is gone. In its place, there's an upper trim, the High Country, which you probably notice on Tahoe and Silverado vehicles. That echoes more of the GMC Denali trim. It's a lot more luxurious. So if you want that instead of the Z71, you've got some extra choices. Most of the time when I'm driving behind a Chevy Traverse, I'm always looking at kind of how bloated it is or just how really off it seems. It's off-putting to me just because it seems more like a van, but not anymore. The blacked out trim, all the proportions, the cut lines, it looks like a trimmer truck even though it's so much bigger than before. That's the magic of good design. It's subtlety, it's playing with all the visual cues like these square exhaust tips, the blacked out trim, and these boomerang style lights that wrap around to the fenders. It's a really good job that Chevy's done here by masking the size, but still making it look rough and tough. In the Traverse, there's 3 more inches of extra legroom and headroom versus the outgoing generation. It definitely feels spacious in here, especially when you go in the back. The first thing you'll see in the Traverse are these extra large screens. The second thing you'll notice are all the red accent marks on the dash, including the red stitching on the seats. That's because this is the Z71. The rest of the dash layout, it looks pretty good, but not all the materials are really where they should be on a vehicle costing nearly $55,000. On every Traverse, heated front seats, a heated steering wheel, wireless charging, and 8-way power driver's seat, all standard. The Traverse is either 7 or 8 passenger. And the 8 passenger is only on the base LT, otherwise you're getting captain's chairs just like these, plenty of room, way more legroom than before, and third zone climate is included, but heated outboard seats not available on the Z71. You gotta step up to the RS for that. In the Traverse, these rear quarter windows are actually a little bit slimmer than those in the Acadia. Same legroom, same headroom, circular air vents up here that you have to push. Not as simple or smooth to use as the square vents in the Acadia, but USB-C ports on both sides and just really easy seats that you can quickly get out of the way so you can exit quickly. There is so much cargo space, 23 cubic feet behind the third row, 57 behind the second row, and when everything is folded, over 97. That puts it at the very, very top of the class for a car-based crossover. If you're looking for power folding rear third row, you're only gonna find that in the RS and the High Country. Cannot get it in this Z71 or the LT, but there is some under tray storage here, so that's pretty handy. Even more space in this big SUV. Every Traverse comes with a 2.5-liter turbo inline-4, replaces the older V6, and it's making more power and torque, over 320 horses, over 320 pound-feet. 8-speed automatic, and front-wheel drive is standard except on the Z71 where it's all-wheel drive only, and it comes with a special twin-clutch rear diff, which kind of acts like a locking diff in certain situations off-road. I'll explain that later, but if you want to tow, 5,000 pounds on every all-wheel drive trim, and the fuel economy, not much worse with the all-wheel drive. You can see it there, and it could be a lot better, but there's no plug-in hybrid or EV or hybrid option. It's just gas. The Traverse is very noisy, and I say that, I have to raise my voice in here because there's no active noise cancellation as standard. You don't get the acoustic laminated windshield and all the other things that you get on the top Traverse trims that just so happen to be standard in a GMC Acadia. As a result, some of the engine's, let's say, less fine qualities come out, and it's a lot more noticeable when you have to accelerate. Because while the power is decent, it just has to strain a lot more. And that's because this engine is not the 2.7 liter turbo inline-4 that I've tested in the Chevy Colorado. Just check out that review, because that engine, the way that one drives, fantastic. But that's for rear-wheel drive trucks. This Traverse is a front-wheel drive based, to start, crossover. So they two just don't work together. I wish it did, because I really prefer that inline-4 to this one. Once, though, you're up to speed, things do settle down, but it is a lot louder in here, and I really can't chalk it all up to the all-terrain tires, because these all-terrain tires, as aggressive as they are, they're not as aggressive as you'll find on a Silverado, for example. I've tested those trucks, and you can definitely hear the hum. Say if you're driving a ZR2 Silverado, that one especially. But for this level of car, it's really just the fact that this is just not a very quiet cabin. So maybe for the money it's okay, but not quite the refined, all-new SUV experience that I was expecting from Chevy. I would also say that kind of straight line stability without even any crosswinds, it's not as great as I was expecting either. You have to make a little bit more corrections here to just stay on course. And there's not a ton of steering feel, which is surprising because a lot of the previous generation Chevys, those late ones like the Equinox, are a lot better. But in the current generation, a lot of the new Chevys, they've taken away some of that road feel, made them a little more distant and numb feeling. So while the chassis control is good, it's just the fact that I'm driving really in a mostly straight line and I feel like I'm still course correcting. And that's not something I had to do before with any of Chevy's big SUVs. The engine is just, I think it's too loud for an SUV in the $50,000 and up class. Even in the 40s, it's not that it vibrates or sends a lot of really odd shakes into the cabin. It doesn't do any of that. It's really just the sound quality. And if you're going up hills and you're really taking this thing on a trail, that can be kind of grating, I think. But the suspension tune is definitely on point. These dampers are unique to the Z71, so they definitely allow some more rebound, which gives you more wheel control over uneven surfaces. But the on-road ride's fantastic. Doesn't change at all how this vehicle feels on the road. I'm let down by the steering feel because the chassis, like all of GM's SUVs and pickup trucks, are really unflappable. They're excellent. Like really hardly any lean. You're not really getting any dive. It's very, very well controlled. And on the Z71, the twin clutch rear diff acts sort of as like a hybrid between a locking diff and a torque vectoring diff. It's basically cheaper than either of them, but it uses a set of clutch packs to basically route the torque left and right. So if you have a situation where you have one wheel that's really stuck in the mud, it'll barely overdrive the other one that's getting more traction. Not quite as capable as what you'll find in a true locking diff, but not as heavy, not as expensive, because again, this is not a truck-based SUV. You would have to step up to a Tahoe and the Z71 package on that truck to have more capability. Again, even though there seems like there's a lot of power, and there's more power than, say, a Pilot or a Telluride. It's still just not enough sometimes. Really, if you're gonna merge onto highways you need to pass, for the same amount of money, you could get into a Ford Explorer with a turbo V6. I mean, it's a good handling SUV. Not fun by any means, but very predictable. It's got decent brake pedal feel. These aren't its best attributes. Really, it's just driving straight on the road and taking some nice gentle curves. That's where the Traverse Z71 is at its best. The Traverse has a 17.7-inch touchscreen. It's large, it's really bright, really helpful for these camera views. And also wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, which the electric Chevys do not even offer, not even as a wired connection. So that's also really nice. Good graphics. You can add anything you want to the instrument panel from here. Legibility is really good. The only thing that's not, headlight controls, other systems here that are really very functional and you can't see. It's partially blocked by the steering wheel. The dome light, why is that here? Could be up here. Hey, why would we want to make things easy where cars have always had them? That is the really tricky part that doesn't make sense here. The climate control, though, does have physical dials and switches. You can also adjust it here, so that's nice. Generally easy to use there. I do like that. There's also plenty of standard safety features. They're really easy to adjust in here. But things like front pedestrian braking, side bicyclist alert, that's stuff that a lot of other cars don't have, all standard on the Traverse. And native Google Maps, really nice. I like that. Again, not a lot of cars do this type of system, and it's over-the-air updatable. I do like what Chevy has done here, but definitely in terms of these controls, they need to be hard buttons and switches. Stuff like this is really not acceptable, but the way it otherwise works is. The digital instrument panel, it's 11 inches. It comes standard, multiple views, including full screen maps. Really easy to adjust right here with a button on the steering column. A few other things. Yeah, you can adjust radio favorites. GM, it's pretty simple. I like that. I do wish, though, that there was a few more things you could do, like changing a lot of the graphics on here, but to do that, you have to go through the touchscreen first. The 2025 Chevrolet Traverse starts around $42,000. There are 4 trims. We tested the Z71 with the Super Cruise option for around $54,000. The competitors, the most obvious, the GMC Acadia, Ford Explorer, Honda Pilot, Kia Telluride, Nissan Pathfinder, and the Toyota Grand Highlander, among many others. For a family crossover, the Traverse and Z71 trim, I like it. The style alone would get me to buy one of these, but it's the engine and the way it drives that would turn me in the other direction. I also think the tech could be improved, especially from a usability standpoint, but in terms of style, all of the interior design, and all of the room that you get for the money, it actually is one of the better new crossovers out there. What do you think? Go to CarGurus.com, subscribe to the YouTube channel. We'll see you next time.